Arthur expressed his delight by repeating a phrase of approval twice, questioning why he had accepted Ethan as a disciple. He knew that this action meant foregoing the requirement having placed in the top 3 of the freshman competition. The reason was clear. Arthur sensed that Ethan's current realm stood at the mid-level of the first rank due to his extremely high spiritual attributes. Furthermore, this mid-level status felt completely genuine, lacking any signs of superficiality. It demonstrated a breakthrough achieved through personal understanding and enlightenment, which was incomparable to simply taking drugs. However, Arthur recalled what he had just heard 10 days prior. Ethan had awakened his superpower during the ceremony. To successfully break through to the mid-level of the first tier in such a short time proved that Ethan's comprehension was absolutely terrifying. Given such immense potential, Arthur felt there was no reason not to take him on. He concluded that this was not wasting a fine piece of raw jade, and wastefulness was shameful. Therefore, Arthur made an exception and accepted Ethan as his personal disciple. Next, Arthur announced that, as agreed, he would personally teach Ethan the Ice Blast spell. He entered a room and retrieved a thick skill book resembling a modern Chinese dictionary. The S-rank skill book Ice Blast was handed over to Ethan. Upon seeing it, Ethan's eyes lit up. This item was incredibly valuable, yet Arthur had given it away so easily. Ethan noted that while the skill book was quite thick and heavy in his hand, he understood Arthur's reasoning. Arthur explained that he had initially considered waiting until Ethan learned the prerequisite skill Ice Break and established a certain foundation. However, considering Ethan's terrifying comprehension, skipping previous steps and learning Ice Blast directly would be much easier. Arthur's expression conveyed complete satisfaction with his decision. After all, Ethan was not only a rare ice-type special recruit unseen in 5 years, but also possessed extraordinary, a terrifying comprehension. How could the dean of the Ice Academy at Crystalport Academy possibly be dissatisfied? Ethan offered his thanks for the compliment. Arthur was very pleased by these words. He narrowed his eyes slightly and nodded, making an immediate decision. He would personally take Ethan to the library to borrow the body tempering technique called Mysterious Netherworld Ice Soul Body, allowing Ethan to study it at any time. Arthur explained that there was a significant difference between letting Ethan go on his own versus personally leading him. The library at Crystalport Academy stipulated that skill books and body tempering techniques could only be borrowed from the facility, with strictly restricted time limits. Given the large student population and limited school resources, they had no choice but to follow this measure, meaning learning efficiency would naturally not be very fast. Nevertheless, Arthur believed there was always a way out, always a chance for things to turn around. With this title as the Dean of the Ice Academy, borrowing a copy of Mysterious Netherworld Ice Soul Body directly would be quite simple. He mused that the environment at Crystalport Academy, and indeed the entire world of superpowers, tended to make resources gravitate towards those who were strong. Arthur softly called out Xiaoyu and retrieved a containment sphere from his spatial ring. With a flash of light, a huge ice-blue eagle materialized before them. This magnificent creature possessed sharp talons and piercing eyes, appearing ready to seize any target it locked onto. He explained that Xiaoyu was his companion beast, and suggested they take flight immediately, noting that the library was quite far from their current location. Using Xiaoyu's help would save a considerable amount of time. The two settled comfortably on the back of the ice-blue eagle. After receiving silent affirmation from both, the magnificent bird took off. Its back was large enough for them to sit securely. It flapped its wings slightly and soared hundreds of meters above the ground, giving Ethan a view of an entirely new world he had never witnessed. Ethan opened his eyes wide, gazing around with intense curiosity. The once towering buildings now appeared miniature beneath them. Furthermore, the eagle utilized a mental barrier to block most of the airflow during flight. Despite the high speed, Ethan only felt a gentle, incredibly refreshing breeze on his face. He then inquired about elemental compatibility, wondering why Arthur's companion beast was still ice-type when one typically relied on water-type beasts to fight fire-type ability users, and if this did not make Arthur doubly vulnerable to fire. Arthur explained the principle of playing to strengths and avoiding weaknesses. He added that a companion beast sharing the same element could slightly accelerate the growth of both individuals under their contract relationship, while also increasing the power it brought to that specific element. At an altitude of several hundred meters, Ethan casually sent Richard a message containing great news: he had become Arthur's disciple. About a minute later, Richard gave the message and quickly offered his congratulations, praising Ethan for gaining Professor Arthur's approval and becoming his disciple so rapidly, suggesting that Ethan was truly on the verge of taking off. A short while later, an eagle landed, bringing Ethan and Arthur before the school library. The building was constructed with extreme luxury, comparable to any major teaching facility. The crowds passing by were bustling. Some students chatted and laughed openly, while others moved silently, bowing their heads in contemplation. Many of them made time to study within its halls. Ethan exclaimed his amazement at the sight. Arthur simply instructed him to proceed inside immediately. Upon entering, a staff member greeted them warmly, though the smile became noticeably more enthusiastic when they recognized Arthur. The staff member then inquired about their purpose for visiting, and Arthur formally requested permission to borrow the body tempering technique known as Mysterious Netherworld Ice Soul Body for his disciple. The staff member responded immediately and cheerfully, assuring them that they only needed to wait a moment while someone retrieved it. Inside the library's free speech area on the first floor, several students noticed the scene and couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. About 10 minutes later, another staff member rushed toward the reception desk carrying an equally thick book. The staff member handed it to Arthur, announcing that this was the body tempering technique Dean Samuel had requested, the Mysterious Nether Ice Soul Body. The surrounding students reacted with visible envy, marveling at the S-rank nature of the technique and how privileged Ethan was to read about it. They continued whispering amongst themselves, casting envious glances at Ethan standing beside Arthur. To become Dean Samuel's disciple immediately after enrollment meant his future prospects were seemingly limitless. Arthur ignored the murmurs of the other students. After obtaining the body tempering technique Mysterious Nether Ice Soul Body, the two turned and left the library. Arthur then suggested they head to his residence so he could teach Ethan some of the essentials of the Schwamming Ice Soul Body. Ethan nodded in agreement, and soon, both traveled back from the library to Arthur's residence atop Shiaoyu. Once settled, Arthur began a detailed explanation of body tempering techniques. He explained that these techniques consist of 4 types: tempering bones, tempering organs, tempering meridians, and tempering flesh and blood. These areas are sequential, running from front to back, and they range in level from 1 to 4. Furthermore, he noted that at level B and below, there were only 4 levels of body tempering. Arthur continued with the advanced rules. Grade A and Grade S body tempering techniques could be used for secondary tempering. This meant a person could temper bones, organs, meridians, and flesh again in sequence, boosting them to the 5th through 8th level. He clarified that because these areas were all basic parts of the human body, different body tempering techniques related to the same type would not incur excessive cost when switching between them. However, he warned about future limitations. If one accessed S-level or higher body tempering techniques, they would need to develop a deeper understanding of the corresponding S-level technique and master the 9th level or higher. Crucially, Arthur emphasized that SS level and above body tempering techniques could not be transferred to another technique. If transfer was desired, the user would have to start all over again from the previous S-level body tempering technique. Ethan absorbed every word of Arthur's detailed explanation. Seeing Ethan's eyes show little confusion, Arthur nodded in satisfaction and began the practical lesson by instructing him to open the Mysterious Nether Ice Soul Body so they could begin tempering his bones. Following these instructions, Arthur provided further context. The human body contained a total of 206 bones, including 29 skull bones, 51 trunk bones, and 126 limb bones. Of those 126 limb bones, there were 64 upper limb bones and 62 lower limb bones. He explained that by tempering all 206 bones of the human body, following the method outlined in the Mysterious Nether Ice Soul Body and guided by his own ice-type supernatural power, one could officially reach the first level of the My Soul body. Upon hearing this, Ethan's pupils dilated slightly and a sharp realization struck him. It required tempering all 206 bones to achieve the first level of the mysterious Nether Ice Soul body. The sheer scale of the task made the road ahead seem incredibly long and arduous. Yet, after asking the system a question he hadn't asked in a long time and receiving an answer, Ethan's mind settled. He remembered that body tempering techniques could also be improved using evolution points. Therefore, the problem wasn't insurmountable. Arthur then announced that it was time to start bone tempering, warning that the initial process would definitely cause pain and required endurance. Ethan acknowledged his understanding, mentally preparing himself for the grueling task. As predicted, the initial body tempering technique involving bones was excruciatingly painful. Intentionally guiding the body's internal energy to constantly impact one's bones caused agony. Those who knew understood this deep discomfort. It made E feel as if he were sitting on pins and needles. However, by gritting his teeth and persevering, the sensation eventually became tolerable, even enjoyable in a strange way. Still, Arthur cautioned that bone tempering could not be rushed. Doing so would make it extremely difficult to get out of bed the next day, potentially leading to hidden ailments that could hinder future cultivation. After spending an entire morning learning the technique, Ethan finally understood how to guide his yuan energy within his body to temper his bones. At noon, he bid farewell to Arthur. After having lunch to replenish his energy, Ethan hurried over to the Frostart Ability Hall. He spent time practicing his marksmanship, tempering his bones, and absorbing elemental energy through potions for cultivation. In just one day, he managed to temper 11 bones entirely through his own efforts. He couldn't help but shake his head at the progress. This rate improvement would take more than 2 weeks, a pace that was far too slow if others knew about it. Ethan realized with certainty that he still needed to enter the underground world. That was where he could improve his strength the fastest. He then pondered aloud that since the bloodlust within him had almost completely dissipated, it was time for him to re-enter the underground world. With this goal in mind, Ethan took the initiative to send a message to Lauren, inquiring about their team's next trip into the underground world. A few minutes later he received a reply. The team usually enter the underground world twice a month, and each operation lasted approximately 1 week. Since they had only returned yesterday, they would have to wait a few more days before another entry was possible. Ethan replied with a simple confirmation. He then felt immense relief, realizing that in just a few days, the bloodthirsty energy within him would surely disappear completely, meaning he had no worries whatsoever. This timing was perfect. He planned to take advantage of these few remaining days to master the basics of Ice Blast. The imagination is beautiful, but reality is cruel. Ethan had originally planned to use this time to reach a basic level in Ice Explosion technique. As after watching for several days, Ethan only understood a tiny bit of the basics. Since Ice Blast is not displayed on the panel, evolution points cannot be used. Time flies and a few days pass quickly. After several days of diligent practice, Ethan's attributes have improved to a certain extent. As he prepared to enter the underground world once again, Ethan was still filled with excitement. After all, the underground world is full of evolution points. How could this not be captivating? With a panel was immediately brought up naming Ethan, Evolution Point 0, Special Ability Ice Crownacy, Realm Level Mid, Tier 1, Mental Scale 174 has Iron Blood Tra 301 calories. His skill for the marksmanship at Immediate and Ice Shard Ring ADS a beginner. His body tempering technique was Profound Nether Ice Soul Body Guess at level 0. He noted the system's observation that his blood and energy levels had exceeded 300 calories, a cause for celebration. It was worth mentioning that there is an additional item on the panel. Body tempering technique. But it is only at level 0. Furthermore, Arthur later gave Ethan a book titled The Complete Guide to Basic Fighting Techniques. He emphasized that people with superpowers cannot rely solely on weapons. Learning martial arts is equally essential. Lauren added to the team's group chat in QQ, instructing everyone to assemble at the Iron Peak Citadel Superpower Base at 12 noon tomorrow. Liam was the first to respond, confirming receipt of the message, followed by others. After setting his alarm, it was only 9 p.m. when Ethan fell into a deep sleep. Upon return to the underground world, Ethan naturally needed to make ample preparations and conserve his energy. After a night's rest, he got up early. He performed his routine, brushing his teeth, washing his face, putting on his battle gear, and slinging his weapon over his shoulder, all in one smooth motion. Leaving the house, Ethan suddenly realized that he hadn't seen Amelia from the opposite dormitory since she had asked him a question. However, Ethan didn't dwell on it. This was ultimately their personal matter, and there was no reason for him to meddle. He rode a shared electric bike outside the dormitory to the school gate, and then took the subway nearby. A few hours later, Ethan arrived at the Iron Peak Citadel again. As soon as he entered the room, Lauren spotted him, calling out and waving for him to come over. Hearing her voice, Ethan nodded slightly and walked toward her. At this moment, Lauren was waiting for someone near the entrance of the Aethelberg City superpower base. Lime looked down, engrossed in chatting via text message. Wearing a smile, though the subject remained unclear to Ethan. No stood quietly to the side, methodically wiping his double-edged axe. The cold light reflecting off the blade indicated its exceptional sharpness. Lime initiated the conversation by asking how Ethan's initial experience entering the underground world had been. Ethan responded with a calm tone, admitting that it had not been bad at all. He reminded Liam that the trip had provided him with several hundred evolution points and tens of thousands of blue star coins, which certainly wasn't poor compensation. Lime smiled in response, patting Ethan on the shoulder and suggesting that Ethan was much calmer than he had been previously. When Ethan then asked about their next planned entry into the underground world, Lauren replied that Olivia was currently exchanging points for necessary medicines nearby, and should be back within a few minutes. A few minutes later, just as Lauren had predicted, Olivia returned with several bottles of medicine. She then turned around and announced to everyone the entire Firefox team was present, and they were heading into the underworld. Following her lead, after a quick inspection, they passed through the passage and arrived back in the familiar Aethelberg city. Ethan scanned his surroundings briefly. The guards stationed on the city wall were visible, as were vendors shouting their wares. Even the spire seemed completely unchanged. Lauren took out a map, and all members of the Firefox team gathered around it. She inquired if they were planning to hunt black, spotted deer again this time. The rest of the Firefox team quickly agreed with her suggestion, and Ethan confirmed that he had no objections either. Ethan then laid out his own plan. Although his true strength was definitely comparable to a second-tier lower or even middle-level ferocious beast, these creatures were often solitary or lived in groups. Fighting them alone presented too much risk. If they accidentally ran into a pack of beasts, they would be left without backup. Therefore, he proposed that their current goal should be hunting first-tier ferocious beasts to safely increase their collective strength. They needed to wait until their power improved before attempting second-tier creatures. Seeing that no one had any objections to the plan, Lauren announced that it was time for them to set off immediately. After passing through the checkpoint outside the city, the group maintained its formation and left Aethelberg City. While the Firefox team was on their way, Ethan's evolution points were also slowly increasing. In the underground world, time is perfectly standardized: sunrise at 6 am and sunset at 6 p.m. It was already dark. The members of the Firefox team stopped in their tracks and set up several tents on the spot. A stream flowed nearby, and the sound of the water was like a beautiful melody. In the stream, several unidentified fish were leaping and frolicking. Upon closer inspection, these fish were quite large and plump. They looked like they would have plenty of meat. The team members decided to catch grilled fish for dinner. Seeing this prospect, everyone went into the water to fish. At night, they lit a campfire using dry branches that had fallen naturally nearby. Next, they stewed the fish with thin twigs and roasted them over the campfire. After roasting, sprinkling some cumin on top made the smell amazing. After dinner, long night began. When it was Ethan's turn to keep watch, he still did not slack off in his training. He practiced damonship, bone tempering, and learning ice explosion. The next morning, the Firefox team resumed their journey. About an hour later, the group arrived at the black deer habitat marked on the map. Lauren instructed them to spread out and search, but warned that they should not stay more than 500 meters apart. Ethan understood that this was a measure to ensure every teammate's safety while maintaining high efficiency. Not long after, Ethan noticed a rustling sound coming from the bushes ahead. The next second, a ferocious deer-like beast sprang out of the bushes. It was entirely black and had an ugly appearance. This was their target, the black deer. Upon seeing Ethan and the other humans not far away, instead of getting angry or provoking it, the black deer took off running. Ethan let out a low shout and thrust his spear forward with a fierce thrust. Unfortunately, the black deer's movements were completely unpredictable, and the spear missed its mark, embedding itself in a nearby tree. Rumble. The ice elemental energy attached to the tip of the spear immediately emanated, piercing right through the tree. Then, with a loud crash, the tree fell to the ground. A thin layer of frost formed in its original spot. The birds that had been perched in the trees scattered and fled. The loud noise drew the attention of the rest of the Firefox team. After Ethan gave a brief explanation, everyone chased after the black deer in the direction it had fled. Following the trail of the escaped black deer, the group arrived at a small black deer settlement. There were about 10 black deer in the settlement. The largest of these was naturally the leader of the dozen or so black deer. The black deer leader rode and unleashed its full power as a lower, level tier 2 second tier deer. Lauren's gaze sharpened, and she summoned her companion beast, Hoo-Hoo, as well. Olivia quickly applied her buffs to the other members of the Firefox team. It was worth noting that the Firefox team took a full year to form. But black deer leaders are not common. This was the second time that the Firefox team had encountered a tier 2 lower rank black deer leader. The first encounter was 6 months ago when Lauren, the team captain, was defeated and seriously injured. Fortunately, she escaped, but she was still bedridden for a week. Now, not only Ethan gained a companion beast named Hoo-Hoo, but he had also gained a powerful new member. He might just be able to have a run-in with this black deer leader. Lauren uttered those words when Ethan, surrounded by 3 icicles, stepped forward, simultaneously raising his spear to prepare for battle. Upon approaching the black deer leader, its muscles bulged and its arms suddenly exerted force. A tremendous tearing sound rang out. The spear in Ethan's hand actually pierced through the thick skin of the black deer leader, who was at least at the second tier lower level. Then Ethan pulled out his spear again, and a thin layer of frost appeared where the black deer leader had been stabbed. In contrast, the black deer leader looked pained, and its forelegs suddenly went numb, causing it to collapse to the ground. Ethan showed no mercy and, after several shots, took the life of the black deer leader. You have defeated the tier 2 lower rank ferocious beast, the black spotted deer, and gained 20 evolution points. Ethan was very pleased to hear the system's announcement. He never expected that this black deer leader would be so valuable. Seeing a newly joined team member, Ethan, with just a few shots, they took care of the blackened deer leader they feared. The rest of the Firefox team were stunned and gave Ethan a thumbs up. Even Noah, who is usually quiet, cast an admiring glance at Ethan. After the black deer leader was killed, the remaining black deer were naturally routed and quickly dealt with by the rest of the Firefox team. The system broadcasted a notification that they had defeated a tier 1 mid-tier ferocious beast, the black spotted deer, granting 22 evolution points. This message appeared multiple times, confirming the considerable amount of evolution points the black deer provided to Ethan. Liam frowned as he frantically cut at the antlers on the head of the black deer leader, finding the task too difficult. Upon closer inspection, he realized the problem wasn't that the antlers wouldn't detach, rather his own dagger was sustaining damage. Noah stepped forward, switched to a harder material dagger, and successfully severed the antlers from the black deer leader's head at the correct spot. Holding the massive pair of antlers in his palm, Liam suddenly understood that what he possessed was not mere bone, but tens of thousands of blue star coins. Following Noah's method, Ethan extracted a moderate-sized brown crystal core from the black deer leader's body. Lauren and Olivia efficiently collected all remaining spoils from the dead black deer. Just as everyone prepared for a break, Lauren suddenly questioned Ethan about his sudden increase in strength. She clearly recalled that during their last operation with the Firefox team, Ethan had struggled merely to fight a first-tier low-level ferocious beast. Yet now, they were able to strike first and kill the second-tier, lower-level black deer leader within just a few rounds. It had only been about 10 days since Ethan left the other world. How could his strength have increased so dramatically? The rest of the Firefox team also turned their interested gazes toward him upon hearing this. Ethan smiled slightly and explained that he had managed to break through to the mid-level of the first tier purely by luck. He released a controlled burst of his aura, making it obvious that his current realm was at the mid-stage of the first rank. A wave of surprise went through the team members. They remembered that when Ethan first joined them, he had introduced himself as an awakened one, and asked for understanding. How could he suddenly become a mid-level Tier 1 ability user? This caused everyone's pupils to widen, even Noah, who was usually silent. Lauren subconsciously worried about him, casting a concerned look his way. Ethan immediately understood her concern, waving his hand dismissively, and reassuring her that he had not taken any random drugs. It was understandable why Lauren would think this given his unbelievable breakthrough speed. However, the system had awakened on its own, and achieving such terrifying progress was simply what it deserved. Hearing his answer, Lauren felt immense relief. She had feared Ethan might jeopardize his future for temporary gains, but now she realized how unlikely it was that such a composed person could act inappropriately. Liam then intervened with a smile, suggesting that Ethan must be a genius who only appeared once in a century. Ethan responded to Liam's playful teasing with an equally similar smile. After a short period of rest to replenish their energy and fluids, the members of the Firefox team resumed searching for and hunting ferocious beasts. Time passed quickly, and before they knew it, the evening of the second day arrived. Ethan checked his evolution points. He had accumulated a total of 560 points over the past day and a half. He observed the only skill available for enhancement was the D-level Ice Shard Ring, but he decided to save those precious evolution points instead. A long night passed, marking the start of the third day since Ethan entered the underground world for the second time. Unlike the inexplicable irritability he had felt at noon on this third day, even as evening approached, Ethan did not experience any of the usual discomfort symptoms. His mood remained cheerful, which surprised and delighted him. After all, being able to stay in the underground world for little longer meant acquiring more evolution points. When it was his turn to keep watch, he naturally took advantage of this break to begin practicing his marksmanship. He simulated thrusts, pricks, deflections, sweeps, braces, and gathers. Half an hour later, Ethan exhaled a breath of stale air. There wasn't a drop of sweat behind him. Instead, there was only a constant stream of cold air. During this break, he opened his personal panel. The status displayed his name as Ethan. He had accumulated 870 evolution points. His special ability remained the S-rank Ice Crown. His current realm level was mid-tier 1. His mental scale measured 174 Hz, and his Q in blood stood at 302 calories. His skill showed marksmanship at intermediate with an upward indicator, an Ice Shard Ring at beginner with an upward indicator. Finally, his body tempering technique remained the S-rank Profound Nether Ice Soul Body at level 0. The evolution points had reached 870, putting him close to breaking the 1,000 point mark by the next day. Ethan nodded slightly in satisfaction, thinking not bad. Not bad. He was just about to put away the panel and prepare himself for learning Ice Explosion when a long, absent upward indicator suddenly appeared next to marksmanship. Ethan recalled that the last time such an arrow had appeared after a marksman's skill was when he had first obtained the system and awakened his superpowers. Marksmanship was incredibly important to him right now. Without further hesitation, Ethan immediately pressed the upward indicator button on the panel. A massive notification flashed across his vision: evolution points -860. Gun Technique Immediate Advanced to Gun Technique Advanced. In an instant, a massive amount of memories flooded into Ethan's mind, as if he had been practicing his marksmanship day and night. The addition of these memories was incredibly smooth, not only leaving him feeling comfortable, but also making him feel that his brain capacity had expanded significantly. After absorbing all the knowledge, Ethan smiled, recognizing the profound depth of advanced proficiency in marksmanship. He realized that he had mastered a level of skill that many ordinary superhumans could never achieve in their entire lives. Yet he had grasped it with remarkable ease. He declared his intention to test the power of this advanced level marksmanship. Ethan picked up the spear beside him and assumed a ready stance. With 3 powerful, whooshing shots delivered in rapid succession, he demonstrated his newfound mastery. It was as if there were no obstacles at all. Every shot was executed without hesitation or delay. He confidently assessed that if he were still facing the black deer leader from earlier, the fight would not last even a second against him. Ethan sheathed his spear, a satisfied smile playing on his lips, acknowledging his truly impressive advanced marksmanship. After this initial burst of exhilaration, Ethan continued to immerse himself in learning the ice explosion technique. Ethan and members of the Firefox team began searching for traces of nearby ferocious beasts, Ethan seeming unusually proactive that day compared to his usual demeanor. Not long after, he spotted several small bamboo leaf snakes curled up beneath withered leaves. The moment lifted the dry foliage. Multiple snakes instantly bared their fangs, attempting to scare him away. He found himself thinking that their little fangs looked surprisingly cute. However, quickly realized that the humans standing before them showed no fear whatsoever. Instead, they wore expressions of sheer joy. The creatures were about to escape. Ethan brandished his spear, and a tiny glint of cold light gradually magnified in the snake's green pupils. With swift movements, he struck out repeatedly. In the next second, the small bamboo leaf snakes were instantly pierced through by the force of his spear. The system immediately announced that he had defeated 2 Tier 1 low-rank ferocious beasts, the bamboo leaf snake, granting him a total of 20 evolution points. As this notification rang in Ethan's ears, he subconsciously opened his panel. He noticed that there was still no upgrade arrow next to the skill ice explosion, confirming that he did not have enough evolution points yet. With this knowledge, Ethan began another round of searching. For the next half hour, whether it was fate working against him or simply bad luck, he could not find even a single trace of a ferocious beast. Suddenly his melodious voice rang out, announcing that she had located a low-tier first-level red-haired rat. Just as Ethan was using his spear to probe the nooks and crannies of the habitat, he heard a call. Ethan smiled knowingly and quickly walked over. He remembered that the entire Firefox team had agreed to summon him immediately if they discovered any trace of a ferocious beast. Upon taking a closer look, he observed a red-haired rat covered in dark red fur, its face set in a fierce expression. The creature instantly pounced on Olivia, who appeared particularly delicate compared to the others. Ethan raised an eyebrow and thrust his spear forward with a command that signaled death. A flash of steel cut through the air, splashing fresh blood onto the ground and staining the once lush green grass red. The red-haired rat was undeniably dead. Ethan realized that facing such low-level ferocious beasts, he could kill them effortlessly with a single spear thrust without even needing to utilize his special abilities. A system notification then appeared. He had defeated a Tier 1 mid-tier ferocious beast, the red-haired rat, and gained 10 evolution points. Having gained another 10 evolution points, Ethan felt a surge of satisfaction. He realized that today was no mere stroke of luck, even though they were in a habitat dense with black deer. The entire Firefox team had spent the whole morning without spotting a single one. Lauren couldn't help but feel doubt, wondering if all the local black deer had either been killed or gone into hiding. She took out a folded map from her pocket, unfolded it, and gathered everyone in the Firefox team together. She suggested that they probably would not find any more black-spotted deer there and proposed venturing deeper into the area to investigate. Olivia frowned, pointing to the opened map with her slender white fingers. She warned them that, judging by the map, the probability of encountering second-tier ferocious beasts increased significantly in the deeper areas. Liam spoke up, reminding the group that their Firefox team included Ethan, who was capable of taking down a Tier 2 lower-level black deer leader with just a few shots. He suggested that even encountering a Tier 2 mid-level ferocious beast would not be fatal. Ethan confidently patted his firm chest and assured them he had everything under control. Lauren then sought Noah's opinion, and Noah stated that he had no objection, believing that with Ethan present, the chances of danger were low. After reaching a consensus, Lauren announced their plan to head toward the area known as the Purple Fang Serpent's habitat, suggesting they rest there for half an hour before continuing. The time passed quickly. The Firefox team ventured into deeper, uncharted territory. Midway through their journey, a Tier 1 mid-level Pippi Pig happened to pass by. As expected, Ethan swiftly stabbed it to death with a few shots. A system notification appeared: "You have defeated the Tier 1 mid-rank ferocious beast, Pippi Pig, and gained 24 evolution points." Ethan itchily opened his panel again. He discovered that the arrow next to Ice Explosion, which he had been longing for, had finally materialized. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan pressed the arrow button on the panel. A system notification flashed: evolution points -100. Ice Blast Yasset Beginner transition to Ice Blast as SS Elementary. The instant the evolution point was consumed, several tips regarding the use of Ice Explosion automatically appeared in Ethan's mind. If he looked at the parts of the skill book that had previously been difficult to understand, they now seemed easy to grasp. Of course, these new insights only helped learners reach a basic level of proficiency. Achieving future mastery would require relying on their own comprehension and diligent practice day and night. Suddenly, a voice from beside him pulled Ethan back to his senses. It was Liam, who had been talking to him. Ethan realized he had been so absorbed in absorbing memories that he had missed the sound. He calmly asked Liam what was wrong. Liam smiled and suggested having roasted pork belly for dinner that night, hoping it would be even more delicious than those sold outside. Ethan nodded his agreement with the idea. The purple-toothed snake's habitat is quite far from here. It took a full 6 hours to reach this place, and even on the 4th night after Ethan entered the underground world, he still failed to arrive. Fortunately, they had prepared sufficient supplies, so they had no worries about food or other necessities. Just as Liam guessed, roasted pork belly did indeed taste better than regular roasted pork belly. It is important to know that Pippi pigs grow up in this primitive environment, while pigs outside eat high-tech feed and grow up in enclosures. The meat is naturally not as delicious as that of a Pippi pig, so the difference in taste when roasted is immediately apparent. The wonderful atmosphere around the campfire quickly came to an end. As bedtime approached, Lauren asked Ethan if he was feeling any discomfort. Ethan knew that Lauren was worried about him. It must be said that although Lauren is not old, only about 27 or 28 years old, she is quite thoughtful and considerate of others. Ethan shook his head and reassured her that he was fine. She advised him that if he experienced any discomfort, he should speak up rather than suffering in silence. After leaving those words, Lauren departed. When it was Fern's turn to keep watch, since his need for marksmanship and ice explosion technique had come to an end, he took advantage of the break to continue tempering his bones. He took our complete guide to basic fighting techniques that Arthur had given him earlier and began to practice. Just as Arthur said, even if he has no weapon or his weapon malfunctions, he can still continue fighting by engaging in close quarters combat. When Ethan began learning martial arts, a new item quietly appeared on his panel: Martial Arts, a Beginner. As dawn broke and the sky began to lighten, the 4 members of the Firefox team got up early. Liam expressed a strong desire for chicken legs, noting how good they smelled. Ethan walked to Liam's tent, unzipped it, and woke him up. After everyone washed up using the pre-prepared water, the entire Firefox team continued their journey. 2 more hours passed before they finally arrived at their destination. Lauren stated with a serious expression, while consulting the map, that everyone needed to stick together and move forward. She emphasized that the purple fang serpent is not like the black flower deer from before. It is a second-tier low-level ferocious beast. If one is not careful, they may lose their lives. Furthermore, this was their first time here, so extreme caution was necessary. Liam spotted something and pointed his finger to a pile of stones on the ground. He had barely finished speaking when he trembled and hid behind Ethan. Yesterday he was carefree, but today he was afraid. Ethan stepped forward and used his spear to pry open the scattered stones. He declared that the purple fanged serpent was about to die. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that this was not a purple fang snake at all, but clearly the shed skin of one. Lauren looked delighted and carefully put away the skin that the purple-toothed snake had shed. Hiss hiss hiss. Suddenly, screams rang out all around. Everyone looked as if facing a formidable enemy, their faces serious. Lauren also summoned her companion beast, Hoo-Hoo. After all, one more beast meant one more unit of strength. Only Ethan remained calm, his expression as indifferent as still water. Just as they had predicted, two serpentine beasts emerged from the bushes. These two ferocious beasts were quite large, appearing to be nearly a meter long. What was most striking, of course, were their long, sharp, purple teeth. The purple stains on your teeth aren't just for decoration, they are packed with toxins. If the skin is broken by their long, sharp teeth, the toxins will seep through and invade the nerves of the target. Therefore they are called purple-toothed snakes, or more accurately, long-toothed venomous snakes. The purple-fanged snake opened its mouth, revealing its complete set of teeth, which looked particularly eerie. At the same time, it spat out a snake apricot, its purple pupils staring intently at the members of the Firefox team. It was obvious they were treating everyone like prey. Ethan raised an eyebrow and mobilized the energy within his body. The tip of the spear was covered with a layer of ice, elemental energy, emitting wisps of cold air. In the moment, Ethan fired 3 sharp and fierce shots in a second, instantly killing one of the purple-fanged snakes. The snake's tongue, which had been trembling slightly just moments before, now drooped to the ground, completely lifeless. Oh, you have defeated the Tier 2 lower rank ferocious beast, the Purple Fang Serpent, and gained 130 evolution points. Originally, the 2 purple-fanged snakes intended to attack the humans in front of them. But a second later, one of the purple-fanged snakes was surprised to find that its companion had been killed so easily. Something's extremely wrong. The surviving purple-fanged snake twisted its body, attempting to escape. The biggest problem now is that although it escapes very quickly, it is far slower than Ethan's gun. You have defeated the Tier 2 lower rank ferocious beast, the Purple Fang Serpent, and gained 130 evolution points. Seeing that Ethan had killed the 2 purple-toothed snakes so easily, the people behind him gave him a thumbs up. While harvesting the spoils from the Purple Fang Serpent, Lime remarked how he had never had snake meat before and suggested they roast some purple-fanged snake tonight. Ethan responded with a playful challenge regarding paying respects to him next year. Lauren shook her head in regret. Note it was a pity the fangs of the purple-fanged snake could not be removed easily, resulting in a loss worth tens of thousands. She pointed out that she didn't bring any professional tools, and that their gloves were not tough enough. If they acted rashly and the gloves got punctured along with their skin while retrieving the fangs, they might accidentally get poisoned, which would be a huge loss. Ethan smiled and stated that he had a solution. Upon hearing his words, a light immediately shone in Lauren's dim eyes. She asked in surprise if he had any ideas. Ethan bent down, stretched out his hand towards the purple-fang snake's fangs, and released a large amount of icy air. The icy air instantly turned into a layer of ice upon contact with the venomous fangs, covering them. As the ice grew thicker, Ethan used his bare hands to forcefully break off the fang's click. The fang was snapped in two like a cookie stick. Rumble just then, a loud noise came from afar, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Everyone's were involuntarily drawn toward the source of a loud, deep rumble. Lime expressed confusion, wondering if the sound was merely an earthquake, or if such phenomena could occur within the underground world. Lauren frowned, quickly determining that the source was not natural seismic activity, but rather a ferocious beast approaching them. A few seconds later, a massive figure silently emerged from the depths of the forest. It was a rhinoceros-shaped creature, nearly 4 meters long and 1.6 meters tall. Its body was covered in rough skin, possessing thick musculature and sturdy thighs, with an estimated weight of several tons. Most striking was the single horn on its head. It was hook-shaped and exceptionally large, taking up more than half of its entire skull. Sunlight caught the horn, reflecting a cold light that sent shivers down their spines just from looking at it. Lauren's gaze sharpened into deep seriousness. She noted that this area did not appear to be the natural habitat for such creatures, suggesting they had been incredibly unlucky indeed. After assessing its power, she determined that this one, horned rhinoceros, was classified as a Tier 2 mid-level ferocious beast. She urgently warned the group that it might be too much for them, and advised an immediate retreat. Upon hearing of Morin's warning, Ethan instantly abandoned his previous intention to escape. He mused internally that sheer size did not necessarily equate to a higher cultivation level. Deciding to test his abilities, he stated that while he had learned the skill Ice Blast, he had never used it in combat and intended to use it on the beast first. To the surprise of the rest of the Firefox team, Ethan raised a long spear and charged straight at the approaching monster. Lauren immediately called out for him to return quickly, cautioning him against such recklessness. Liam swiftly intervened, arguing that Ethan was always composed and trustworthy, which helped calm Lauren's initial alarm. Meanwhile, Ethan ran toward the enemy with absolute confidence. The one rhinoceros did not attempt to flee. Instead, it charged forward willingly, seemingly drawn to the human presence. It raised its single horn and attacked directly at Ethan, showing no mercy, as if intending to smash him into pieces like a bolt of lightning. However, the violent scenario never came to pass. With a shout, Ethan unleashed his Ice Blast. The moment his spear clashed with the rhino's horn, a massive amount of elemental energy was released from the tip of the weapon. This power passed through the rhinoceros's horn and enveloped its entire body. The next second, a powerful burst of ice-type elemental energy erupted instantly, as if an enormous bomb had been planted inside it. The blast did not merely affect the horn, it obliterated the entire one-horned rhinoceros. Fragments of the beast mixed with blood flew in all directions. Ethan's battle armor, face, and hair were splattered by bright red gore. Even 100 meters away, felt a wave of nausea upon witnessing such a bloody spectacle. Liam, Lauren, and Noah were more shocked than disgusted by the outcome. They had considered the beast to be manageable, but they never expected Ethan to kill it with a single blow, realizing that his growth rate was truly incomprehensible. Yet, Ethan, who stood closest to the corpse, felt no physical impact from the blood splatters. He only registered a profound sense of emptiness. The instant he unleashed the skill Ice Explosion, he could feel that most of the yuan energy in his body was being violently drawn away out of thin air. Suddenly, it was completely taken aback by the sudden drain and slumped heavily to the ground, panting raggedly. A system notification flashed before them. He had defeated the Tier 2 mid-level ferocious beast, the unicorn rhinoceros, gaining 400 evolution points. Fortunately, the result was highly beneficial. The death of the one-horned rhinoceros not only meant that its white crystals, which resisted elemental energy, remained intact for a considerable price, but Ethan also gained a full 400 evolution points. With this addition, his accumulated evolution points were rapidly approaching 700. Ethan realized just how fast his growth rate was. The deeper they ventured, the stronger the ferocious beasts he killed, and consequently, the faster he accrued evolution points. The entire Firefox team rushed over to him. Liam gave him a thumbs up with a beaming smile, openly praising Ethan's amazing feat of strength. Meanwhile, Lauren noticed Ethan's unusual behavior, observing him with a serious and thoughtful expression. Later, as the group began discussing their next meal, Liam excitedly mentioned that they would not have to eat roasted snake meat tonight, noting that rhinoceros meat was much better. Ethan raised an eyebrow, pointing out that ordinary flames would be insufficient to roast such meat, and suggested asking Lauren if she could use her special ability for preparation. At this moment, Lauren blinked her bright eyes, turning her attention back to him as she questioned the powerful skill he had just utilized. After them raised a question, drawing the attention of others who also looked on with questions. The visual impact of his attack was simply too great. It was natural for doubts to arise. So, Ethan revealed the truth. This is my teacher's self-created S-rank skill Ice Explosion, which I only learned yesterday. Lauren's pupils widened in disbelief as she exclaimed, "Huh, an S-rank skill?" The other members of the Firefox team were shocked once again. It was important to know that even an S-rank skill book is incredibly valuable, let alone a self-created S-rank skill, which is even rarer. However, they quickly realized that the main point wasn't just the rarity, it was Ethan's ability to learn such high-level skills so quickly. They note only about 3 weeks had passed since his entry into Crystalport Academy. A mere amount of time, during which he hadn't even mastered a C-level skill. An S-rank skill. That seemed like pure fantasy. This clearly demonstrated how extraordinary Ethan's comprehension was. Yet, upon closer reflection, they realized that without the S-rank skill, the mid-tier second-order rhinoceros would never have been instantly killed. And a large portion of his internal energy would never have vanished into thin air. After collecting the remaining valuable loot from the one-horned rhinoceros, Lauren spoke with a strangely melancholic tone, stating that Han's strength was not suitable for staying here for long, because the risks were simply too great. She questioned whether he still wanted to remain. However, since Ethan still intended to hunt ferocious beasts here, another question arose. After thinking for a moment, Ethan nodded in affirmation. He did want to stay and continue hunting. Compared to the outside world, hunting a ferocious beast from his current location was equivalent to a day's harvest in terms of evolution points. Lauren agreed with his decision, then instructed them to head back. She warned him to be careful on his own, promising that they would give him everything he was owed. In fact, she stuffed most of the energy potions from her backpack into Ethan's, keeping only one bottle for herself. A sign of her genuine care. Furthermore, because Ethan's original spear could not withstand the release of his ace explosion technique, both his old spear and the one-horned rhinoceros had shattered. Therefore, as they prepared to leave, Liam also handed his spear to Ethan. It was a high-quality item, costing around 200,000 yuan when purchased, and superior to Ethan's previous weapon. Liam cautioned that this spear of his wasn't cheap, so he'd better treat it with care. Ethan smiled slightly and assured him not to worry. After the rest of the Firefox team departed, Ethan felt he had almost fully recovered his energy. He rushed deeper into the area, driven by the promise of tons of evolution points. About 10 minutes later, Ethan realized a very crucial problem. Lauren had forgotten to leave him a map. He had planned to return to his starting point and wait for her to bring it back. Instead, he was faced with trees on both the left and right sides. Who knew where the original spot was? The next, a sound came from the surrounding bushes. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Purple Fang Snake slithered past him. A smile immediately appeared on Ethan's lips. Look, free evolution points. You defeated the Tier 2 lower rank ferocious beast, the Purple Fang Serpent, and gained 130 evolution points. He murmured to himself in satisfaction that this was really great. He now had a new idea. Even without a map or the ability to return to his original location, why not just wander around the neighborhood and not go too far? It was simple enough to get back. He just needed to keep walking generally in the direction he came from. Fortunaran Peak Citadel was very large and conspicuous, making it visible from afar. With this thought, Ethan began to wander, using a dagger to mark the trees he passed by as markers. Until he parted the bushes, they discovered an open space ahead, upon which lay the lair of a ferocious beast. He became cautious and squatted down on one side of the grass to observe carefully, deciding they should find out what kind of creature's lair it was before proceeding. After observing for a period of time, he concluded that the creature was a wolf-shaped beast with a fierce appearance, a bluish-green body, and relatively rough fur. Its tail also carried a faint wisp of wind elemental energy. Ethan immediately recognized it as the lair of the Gale Demon Wolves. He recalled what Mr. Ethan had taught him back in high school. The Gale Wolf, when fully grown, can reach the upper level of the second tier. Unlike many other types of wolves, the Gale Wolf usually lives with one male and one female, and absolutely will not allow other members of its kind to enter its habitat. 2 adult Gale Wolves, both at the upper level second tier. This was going to be tricky. Ethan hesitated internally. Although the Gale Wolf was significantly weaker in defense than the Unicorn Rhinoceros by species, it was still a formidable predator. However, the difference in their levels was undeniable. Even a minor realm gap could create a huge disparity. 1 Gale Wolf was manageable, but 2 would be troublesome. He questioned whether he should give up this tempting opportunity right in front of him. According to the system's prompts, killing the Unicorn Rhinoceros had brought him 400 evolution points. Conservatively speaking, a single second-tier upper-level Gale Wolf would definitely have 500 evolution points, and 2 would yield over 1,000. Just as Ethan was pondering and hesitating, a sound came from the bushes behind him. Alarm bells rang in his mind as he looked towards the source. Following Ethan's gaze, a pretty figure emerged from the bushes before him. She possessed delicate features and long, flowing hair, clad in a light black battle suit that showcased her perfect figure. Perched on her shoulder was a small, dark blue dragon cub. The woman was Amelia, who lived in the dormitory opposite Ethan's. He realized with surprise that he hadn't seen her at school since asking himself this question previously. However, these details were secondary. The key question remained: how had Amelia ended up here? Not only was Ethan stunned by the situation, but Amelia herself seemed surprised as well. After a few seconds, she blinked her bright eyes and questioned the sheer coincidence of his presence in this location. Ethan spoke truthfully. There was nothing he needed to hide. He stated that they were in the underground world and that he must have come here specifically to hunt ferocious beasts. He then turned the question back to her regarding her own purpose for being there, reasoning that ordinary people only entered the underground world for one reason: making money. Given its extreme danger, losing one's life was a real possibility if one wasn't careful. If they couldn't earn substantial wealth through this dangerous endeavor, who would bother coming here? Ethan, by contrast, had a goal beyond mere profit. He sought to acquire evolution points. But Amelia stood before him as the eldest daughter of the Shia family in Vedantia province. Her family had prepared a rare deep sea dragon cub for her to serve as a companion beast. It did not seem like she needed to hunt ferocious beasts in the underground world just to earn a small amount of money, especially since she hadn't awakened a system like Ethan did. Amelia offered a partial truth, explaining that she was there to train her teamwork with Megan through practical combat. She believed that training teamwork often yielded better results in actual battle than it could in a controlled training room. Furthermore, everyone present knew that the underground world within the school had been sealed off in preparation for the freshman competition scheduled a month away, making it an excellent place to familiarize oneself with the environment before entering the real underground world. As for the other half of the truth, Amelia guessed that Ethan's terrifyingly fast rate of growth might be related to his trips into the underground world. Thus, just a few days ago, she entered the underground world for the first time. Similarly, the underground path connecting through the Iron Peak Citadel was suitable not only for Ethan, but also for her. Although she did not gain any insights into cultivation during her initial entry, and had even hastily left due to a bloodthirsty aura, she still chose to enter the underground world a second time because she genuinely enjoyed the feeling of freedom found in the wilderness. A sense of freedom, something she could never experience, no matter how realistic the simulation might be. Ethan paused, noticing unfamiliar keywords after hearing Amelia's response and calling out to Little Blue, who was lounging on him like a lazy pet. Amelia smiled faintly as she introduced the companion beast resting upon her. The deep sea dragon cub let out a lazy sound before settling onto her shoulder. It seemed profoundly sleepy, though perhaps that was just a habit for the creature. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck Ethan. Although he knew he was no match for the two Gale wolves, both residing at the upper level of the second tier, he realized that things were different now. If Amelia agreed to assist him, these wolves would naturally become manageable. He then asked if she could help him take down the pair ahead. Amelia immediately frowned, worry clouding her fair face. She suggested that she and Megan could handle one wolf, but questioned Ethan's capability to take on the other. Her concern stemmed from the fact that Ethan was only at the mid-level of the first rank, while the opponent's Gale wolf stood at the upper level of the second tier. Even with the first rank awakened superpower, she felt it couldn't bridge such a significant gap between major and minor realms. Hearing Amelia's worried assessment, Ethan adopted an oddly confident expression. He wondered if she was implying he wasn't good enough, but dismissed the thought instantly. Patting his chest with a knowing smile, he assured her that he would handle the other Gale wolf without any problem. Seeing his unwavering confidence, Amelia's worries slowly dissipated. The two then spotted down in the spot where Ethan had been standing. As he got closer, a faint fragrance, like delicate flower petals, wafted into his nose, perhaps related to Amelia's awakened grass-type ability. Ethan and Amelia discussed their strategy. They would each take on one wolf within the den ahead, making sure to leave the Gale wolf they were dealing with alive. Amelia questioned why they needed to spare a breath of life, recalling that living ferocious beasts could not be brought into the real world. Ethan explained that he intended to deliver the final blow himself. Amelia nodded in agreement. Ethan let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she hadn't pressed him on this point, or he would have struggled greatly to explain it. Ethan and Amelia emerged from the bushes moments later. Immediately Ethan picked up a stone and smashed it hard against the Gale wolf's lair. The loud snap echoed through the area, a sudden noise that interrupted the male and female wolves who were inside their den, attempting to increase the number of members in the pack. Soon after, 2 Gale wolves emerged. Their faces showed clear displeasure, and their light green eyes seemed to burn with palpable anger. They lowered their heads and let out a deep howl, gathering strength for the inevitable confrontation. The loud cry startled the birds in nearby trees, causing them to take flight. Ethan declared that while loud voice was useless, true strength was the foundation of everything. Holding the light green spear Liam had left him, he rushed forward. Amelia was equally determined and quickly drew her long sword, charging into the fray right behind him. Simultaneously, Little Blue jumped off Amelia's shoulder, instantly growing larger. Like many companion beasts, it possessed 2 distinct states, a daily state and a battle state. This deep sea dragon cub was no exception. Just like now, it had instantly transitioned from its daily state to its full battle state. The 2 swift wolves did not retreat. Instead, their fighting spirit intensified as they challenged Ethan's presence, declaring that it was time to settle a score. However, upon seeing the deep sea dragon cub in its fighting stance, the anger in Ethan's heart instantly extinguished. This creature was identified as a companion beast of the dragon race, an extremely powerful and top-tier ferocious beast. Observing this, both the male and female Gale wolves began communicating among themselves, debating whether they should still fight against a dragon. One wolf suggested that since the dragon was so small, it could not possibly be a match for them, leading the others to conclude that they must continue fighting, because their enjoyment had been ruined. Ethan couldn't understand the language of the Gale wolves, only questioning what gibberish they were speaking. Frowning, Ethan held his long spear and advanced toward the 2 wolves. The beasts were not outdone. They imbued their claws with wind elemental energy. One wolf raised its sharp claws as if to clash head-on with Ethan's spear. Amelia followed suit, swinging her long sword and unleashing the skill flying leaf blade. A hook-shaped blade flew swiftly toward one of the Gale wolves. Simultaneously, Megan used her skill, water balloon impact, spitting out several water balls that flew towards the same wolf. As the leaf passed, it cut a shallow wound on the Gale wolf, causing drops of blood to drip to the ground. Several water balls hit the wolf in succession, inflicting considerable pain, and the Gale wolf's attention instantly shifted from Ethan to Amelia. The claws of the Gale wolf clashed with Ethan's spear, producing a sharp metallic clang. The wind elemental energy attached to the wolf claws caused Ethan's spear to tremble irregularly. Fortunately, Ian's marksmanship was highly proficient, allowing him to control this level of skill easily. Next, he activated the skill Ice Shard Ring, increasing the activity of ice-type elemental energy within his body. He declared with fierce intent that he was no longer playing around. In an instant, most of his body's energy was drained. Even though this was the second time he had used Ice Blast, Ethan still hadn't fully adapted to its immense drain. Although feeling uneasy, the Gale wolf he was fighting was in an even worse state. The powerful ice elemental energy flowed through the spear in Ethan's hand, covering the entire body of the Gale wolf. With a violent shattering sound, the head of the Gale wolf was blasted open with a huge bloody hole. Due to firstfence in their cultivation levels, its vitality remained stronger than that of previous mid-level second-tier rhinoceroses. Ethan mused internally that there is a limit to jokes. Although its head was gone, the Gale wolf's life force had not completely disappeared, and its limbs were still twitching. However, for Ethan this was nothing more than a few more blows. He raised a spear and launched a fierce attack on the still active part of the Gale wolf. A few seconds later, the Gale wolf finally died. The system announced that he had defeated the Tier 2 high-rank ferocious beast, Gale Wolf, gaining 550 evolution points. Ethan's eyes lit up at the massive reward. This far exceeded what he had gained in a day in the shallow waters. Indeed, nothing ventured, nothing gained. As his thoughts wandered, Ethan turned his attention to Amelia and the other Gale Wolf. The second wolf was also covered in wounds of varying sizes and depths. Its once green fur was matted together in many places, stained with blood and water damage, looking utterly disheveled. In contrast, Amelia's light black battle suit was almost spotless, indicating she was relatively relaxed. After all, her companion beast, the deep-water dragon cub, was no pushover. Even though it was still in its cub form, its offensive capabilities should not be underestimated. Ethan raised a spear and threw it forward, piercing through the dying Gale Wolf's body. Ice-type elemental energy raged wildly within its core. The system confirmed that he had defeated the Tier 2 high-rank ferocious beast, Gale Wolf, gaining 550 evolution points. With a whopping 1,100 evolution points in hand, Ethan clapped his hands together in satisfaction. However, the good times did not last long. Due to the depletion of his internal energy, Ethan instantly felt powerless and collapsed to the ground. Amelia rushed over immediately, expressing concern for him. When he reassured her that he was fine, she accepted it. But Ethan quickly pulled out an energy potion from the backpack behind him and drank it all in one go before regaining his footing. He thanked her profusely, explaining that without Amelia's help, he would not have been able to handle those two Gale Wolves alone. He admitted that after just one use of Ice Blast, he would have been severely weakened and lacked the strength needed for the second wolf. After polite acknowledgement, Amelia voiced the question that had been nagging at her, what skill he had just used, noting how incredibly powerful it was. The loud explosion from his Ice Blast had instantly captured her full attention. To their astonishment, they discovered that the once enormous adult Gale Wolf had been blasted into many pieces. However, since this was still a time of conflict, she refrained from asking any further questions. Ethan then revealed the truth. It was an S-rank skill belonging exclusively to his teacher, Ice Blast. Amelia's bright, beautiful eyes widened in surprise upon hearing this revelation. She recalled her aunt had also given her an S-level skill book on the day she registered for the job, but even now, she had only managed to learn 60% of it, falling short of beginner proficiency. A slight sense of frustration washed over Amelia due to Ethan's evident excellence, especially considering he came from such a prominent family. Yet, she quickly dismissed the feeling, reminding herself that cultivation was about breaking through one's own limitations step by step, not constantly comparing oneself to others. Seeing the bloodstains on his face, she gently offered to clean them for him.